Today's youth need teachers, volunteers, and most of all, well, they need you. I'm Doug Edwards, and I'm going to be talking with real youth mentors and students to give you the knowledge you need to be the best youth worker possible. This is Youth Worker on Fire.
Oh, you're trying to bring me down and run me out of town. You're taking what you want, but you can't take my rhythm now. I'm walking to my own beat, just gonna be me. I'm not replicating nobody. You wanna be like me.
Hey, Youth Worker on Fire. This is Doug Edwards, and I'm with Brent Crowe from Student Leadership University. Been really looking forward to Brent being on the show. Thousands of people know Brent, tens of thousands. I've known of him and knew him since he started with Student Leadership University, especially through Youth Pastor Summit as well. Brent, how you doing today?
I'm good, Doug. Man, I'm good. It's Christmas season, so I'm about as happy as I could be right now.
I know. It's like, where did November go? What happened to that?
I miss it, but I'm not too sad.
That's good. Brent is a visionary. He's a communicator. Now, I know these things about him, but I want you to know this. Who has a passion to present his life-changing message of the gospel. Brent uses humor and real-life situations to relate to people at the heart of their struggles. Now, listen to this. Brent is married to Christina, who is also Jay Strack's daughter, and they have 6 kids. And I think I'd seen Christina around at Youth Pastor Summit and Student Leadership University before I saw you, because
Probably.
I believe you. How did you guys meet?
It's pretty simple story. I was a student pastor, brought a group, and it was the only week that she was volunteering that summer because it was the largest week of the summer for the program, and they needed a couple extra pair of hands. So she came over and she took an interest into one of the young ladies in my group, trying to help her, and then of course I took an interest into her, and so we snuck away for coffee one night, and the rest is history. I mean, she stalked me after that, man. She just, everywhere I went, she was, and she would call me every 5 minutes. I thought, oh, well, might as well marry her. So,
Is that the story she would tell?
probably not.
Probably not. Seems like the wife stories are always a little bit different. So that's great, man. You also have a doctor's degree, so we could call you Dr. Brent. I haven't heard you have many people call you that, but you are. I mean, that's a big deal to be able to get your doctorate degree. You got 2 master's degrees. Here's 2 phrases. Austin, your assistant. I said, Austin, give me some phrases. Tell me some things that Brent says all the time. And I've heard you say these phrases before. So I want you to expound on this right off the top before we go into anything else. 1 is leadership begins at the feet of Jesus. And 2, self-preservation never changed the world.
Well, the first statement, leadership begins at the feet of Jesus, is something that we've been saying around our shop. I think I started saying that 20 years ago, probably, something like that. But, you did mention education. I did my doctoral work. I got a PhD in leadership theory and applied theology, which is as boring as it sounds. It's just a big old degree where you study the history of leadership theory. Now, this is very important. I'm going somewhere with this. Leadership theory is exactly what it sounds like. It's to theorize around something in a subculture that produces something else. Like this subculture at this particular time in history was able to operate this way to get maximum production for a product or to create healthier culture or whatever it might be. So to study the history of leadership theory is to study the history of basically what works. Our approach to helping a generation think, dream, and lead at the feet of Jesus, our approach to leadership development is very different. We don't start with what works. We start with what has already been accomplished. And it's not just a sleight of tongue or just a a cutesy way of trying to set yourself apart. I believe that as followers of Jesus, we have a fundamentally different starting point with how we approach the subject of leadership and how we cultivate our leadership skills and expand our leadership capacities. Um, because we start with what Christ has done in us. We turn immediately then to the creation narrative to understand how we were created, what creation gifts were given to us. There are three primary creation gifts given to us in the creation narrative, and that is the gift of freedom, the gift of relationship, and the gift of creativity. Now, you can cultivate, you can take those three gifts and cultivate them for the glory of God. You're already on your way to maximizing your influence. But secondly, the more you study, the more you see that me using my influence to make God obvious in every step, in every sphere, and in every place that my foot would go is part of being a disciple. So therefore, my beginning point with leadership causes me to bring the idea of leadership under the broader banner of disciple making. So when I say leadership begins at the feet of Jesus, I'm saying, hey guys, this is devotional first. It's practical second, and that's why that's been so important to our kind of to the core vision and mission of SLU for a long time. And praise Jesus, there's students all over the world who, when they hear that statement, they know what that means.
That's awesome. No, that's amazing. Let's go to that second one. Let's go to self-preservation, never change the world. What about that one?
There was this thing, I don't know if you've heard about it. It's called the pandemic.
Yeah. We've heard there's a rumor out there. Yeah.
There's a rumor going around. Well, it happened so fast. I mean, we all know it, and then it unfolded slowly, then quickly. Like there was these little rumors, and then there was this giant tidal wave of everything stopping. Now, I'm not commenting on whether or not you should wear a mask. Wear a mask. Don't do this. Do this. Here's the thing. We got criticized because we wore masks, and I go, and then I got asked if I think masks work, and I said I don't think they work, but a hotel said you can hold an event when nobody else is holding events if you'll wear masks, and I'll go, heck yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, you mean we can't, when nobody's getting together, we can get several hundred people together and do and keep moving forward? Yeah, you want us to put this stupid piece of cloth on? Hey, you want me to put two? I'll put two on for you. I mean, that was my attitude. Like, let's go to work, man. I don't care. There's enough people in this world to have side hog conversations and to whine and moan about things that ultimately really aren't going to change anything. Well, y'all go do that. I'm happy to throw a piece of cloth on and go to work. So we got back quick after the pandemic. But there was this period of time in which nothing happened, no matter where you were or who you were. And most people just shut down shop. And I circled our team. And do you remember we created words, Doug? You remember we didn't fire people, we furloughed people. Remember that?
Yeah, yes.
That was the same. That's like trying, I mean, it's like trying to say, that's the ultimate trying to say bad news in a nice way. Nobody got furloughed, they got let go. There was no money to pay them, so they got fired. And so I asked the Lord Jesus for two things. I said, I don't want to go. We can't go anywhere for the next however many months. I want two things, Jesus. If you would answer this prayer, one, that I wouldn't have to let go any of my staff. Number two, that you'd figure out a way for us, Lord Jesus, to serve more students this summer with no programs in person than we did last summer. And it's a pretty audacious prayer, but I think the Lord honors those. And so we created an entire model and you go, man, those degrees aren't going to save anybody. And you're right. But I remembered one night at about midnight trying to figure out how to get through this thing, an old educational theory called discovery learning theory. And I went back and I looked it up. It's a theory from the late 1800s about how to teach students in a way in which they sit in the driver's seat of the learning experience. And so, and it has a lot to do with critical thinking and creativity and, and collaboration. And so we put together an experience that could be done over a computer screen, and we put together these giant boxes and would mail them out called journey boxes. But the journey box, coupled with the student, helped them to sit in the driver's seat of the learning experience, and the screen played a secondary role. And what happened is so when all that was going on, I mean, it was 16, 18 hours a day for 6 weeks. I wrote on a piece of paper and I put it over my desk. The reason we're doing this is because self-preservation never changed the world. And we got to the end of that. We didn't have to let one person go. We ended up having more people go through our ministry that summer than we did the previous summer. SLU didn't miss a beat. And the truth is, and Doug, this is just a little side note, but when we got done with the summer 2020 and the pandemic, that initial summer, and we looked up, you know who else noticed? Is donors.
Wow.
Donors cared deeply about somebody who wasn't passive during the pandemic, who didn't circle the wagon. So we had this great season, thank you, Jesus, where people just went, yeah, we're very confident to donate to this nonprofit ministry. And so that was a huge blessing to us. So that's where that came from.
Well, that's an amazing story and a great story because it's true. I mean, God is bigger than a pandemic, and you did some things that you needed to do to move forward. People criticize all kinds of things, but you have to listen to God and listen to your heart at the end of the day. And by the way, I love the fact that you've got your education because you and Jay use your education for good. You really do. I've spent a little more time with him than I have you. And so I apologize for that because I'm so glad that we're getting together today because you and I finally get to actually talk about it. Here you guys are. You're always looking for ways to further the gospel, ways to get your students involved in a God worldview. Catch us up to date with where you are now.
Well, Student Leadership University is this ministry designed to come alongside and help students to think and to dream and to lead. We have 3 different models of SLU 101 now. And we did that because we had a good problem for a few years, Doug, and I don't mean this in a marketing sense. This is the answer to the question. It's we were full with a wait list on so many things that we had to reimagine how we go about ministry to make more room. And so we created 3 different options, if you will, for SLU 101. And so we have what we call our SLU 101 Vision Conference, our SLU 101 Imagine Conference, and our SLU 101 Dream Conference. And so the Vision Conference is that thing we created during the pandemic, and now we've just taken it to an entirely different level and made that we've been able to challenge the process of that now for 4 years. So it's that's for the individual to go through the experience on their own. Then we have the Imagine model, which is for the student who can't get on airplanes. It's too expensive to go stay in the hotel for 3 days and go to Orlando or San Antonio or Southern California or wherever it may be. So we come to you, and we're only doing 5 of those a year, but we're going to go to, we were just several weeks ago in South Florida. A wonderful church there named Christ Fellowship hosted us, and we had churches from all over the southern part of the state attend. And we did our SLU 101 Imagine Conference. So it's where we come to you. And then the Dream Conference is where everybody will come to us. And so there's 3 different models of SOU 101 now. That's a big shift for us. We have, obviously, we're continuing to plug away with Student Leadership University 201. That's typical. Here we are walking into Christmas. It's already full. 301 takes place, SOU 301 in London, Oxford, Paris, Normandy. 401 this year, we're not, just like last year, going to be able to be in Israel. It's where we normally take students, but we will be in Greece. We're going to be doing part of Turkey. We're going to be doing early church tours and hitting some high spots on Paul's missionary journeys, and we're doing the best we can in light of the situation that's happening over there, where we can't go to Israel. So the journey is still intact and growing, the SLU journey. The second big shift in our organization is Youth Pastor Summit, which has just been part of the fabric of who we are since long before I came along. Dr. Jay Strack was doing a one-day Youth Pastor Summit long before I got here. But Youth Pastor Summit now is 5 cities across the country in the spring. So we'll have Nashville, Charlotte, Dallas, Chicago, Southern California. And then in the fall in Orlando, we do Youth Pastor Summit National Conference, where we bring, it'll be about 3,000 youth workers and youth pastors together. The ones in the spring probably will have, 600 to 900 at them. But the one we do in the fall, the national conference, will probably about, it'll have it probably have over 30 states represented at the conference, and it'll be a bigger gathering. And so those are the 2 areas of emphasis for us, Doug. And man, we're gonna stay in our lane and keep plugging away and celebrate what other people are doing in their lane, and believe that God's going to use all of us together to accomplish His purposes.
And, Brent, I noticed that when you came on board, that it seems like the expansion kept going more. And of course, you've got more staff now. Were you key in expanding Youth Pastor Summit? For a long time, it was primarily just in Orlando. And then it went to the Midwest and then to the West. And now you're all over. In fact, I just got back from Charlotte. They're going to be thrilled to know that you're going to be there. And I will be, because I have lots of connections to those areas. Were you key in a lot of that?
I don't want to toot my own horn here.
No, and I'm not trying to get you to do that for that reason. Everything here is to help youth workers, with volunteers, youth pastors, just to lift them up. And you're just a guy who was a youth worker who ended up with, Student Leadership University and Jay Strack and all of this. And here you are. You guys are doing, your world changing. You're not the only guys doing it, but you don't have to do what you're doing now. It's a headache to expand to extra cities, to do all these things. There is a lot of work that happens. Tell me about you. How did you fit into all that?
It's a headache. But when you know this as well as I do, Doug, better. I am. First of all, I was a youth worker, and I am a youth worker. And I'll be a youth worker till the day I die. It's just the reality is, if your personality is a certain wiring, if you're a driver, or if you score a certain way on a personality profile, or if God puts something on your heart and calls you to do something, there's really no way of getting around it. there's no way of taking the easy road on it. I knew what Youth Pastor Summit could be, because I believed that we charge a little bit of we had start 5 years ago. We had to start charging like $15. It's a registration fee. The conference is still a gift, but the reason we did that, and I fought against that, is because we'd have so many people register. Our systems were old, and it was shutting them down, and my team was like, you want to serve all these people, but we can't even get them registered because the system keeps shutting down. So can we at least get something so they can get registered so that we can do the conference for them? And I went, okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
I mean, won't Jesus just do that for you? I mean, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I'm sprinkle something on this. Yeah. So no, it does have a little bit of that to it. But yes, I was given the assignment to what can I do with this? To what would I do with this? And it was given to me early on, along with everything else. To be quite honest with you, and we did. We grew it. We put a plan together and wanted to be nationwide. And my eventual goal is that there's enough student ministry training so that every youth pastor, because I think youth pastors are the least trained and equipped. They don't have as many opportunities. If you just look at your typical person who is volunteering or is bivocational, those two categories, there's not a lot there's nobody's going, hey, here's a big plan, follow this. It's just go there's the room, that's your instructions. There's the room. We think there's some students down there. That's their instructions. So they're not,
if they get that.
Yeah. So they're not as resourced. They're not as equipped. So man, I want to come alongside that group, because that group's the one speaking into and discipling an entire generation. So yeah, we looked at, now here's a fun little side story of how that all happened. A friend of mine became the individual to oversee all of Lifeway students. And Lifeway students is, they're in charge of more camp ministry than anybody in the world, more curriculum than anybody in the world. It's a pretty good argument that they are the largest hub of stuff for youth ministry in the world. And he was just like me. He's a youth worker, and he was, I guess, doing a good job. So they said, hey, will you come be in charge of this? And he said, he called me and he's like, trying to learn to do this job is like learning to walk on Mars. There's just no manual for it. I don't know what I'm doing. So we put a team of us together, and we kind of served as a consult team, if you will, an advisory group, or I don't know. But we all got on and helped and talked. And one night he called me and he's like, I'm so grateful. You guys have helped me get started in this thing, get my head around it. Man, if you could do one thing at SOU differently, but you can't because of finances, what would it be? And I said, well, Youth Pastor Summit's a one day, one city thing. I would love for this to be a nationwide 2-day experience for youth pastors to get training and youth workers to get training all over the country. And okay, he goes, hey, how much will that cost? Doug, I had no idea how much it would cost. I'm not going to tell you what I said, but I made up a number that night. And I wish I would have made up a bigger number. But anyways.
Exactly, yes. Yeah, I get you. Go ahead.
And he went, cool, let's do that. And in that very moment, Lifeway Students became our kind of title sponsor, if you will, partner, whatever it is. And they just really said, we'll help make it happen. You got the dream, you got the ability, you just need the resources. And they said, cool, here, go get them, Tiger. And that helped us launch. I mean, that next year we launched 4. And now we do, between Youth Pastor Summit in the spring and the Youth Pastor Summit National, we'll have 6 spots across the country. And it'll be, unless something else changes, it'll be the largest in-person training for youth workers and youth pastors in the country this next year.
Well, let me say this, and I believe this since the beginning of hanging out with you guys. Nobody gives more than Student Leadership University and Youth Pastor Summit. Number one, Youth Pastor Summit. That sort of thing I used to go to before you guys started that, and it would cost us over $600 for a weekend. It would cost us that, and that didn't count the housing. That was just, and the conference was wonderful. It's amazing. But you guys, so what if you charge $15 to $100, for Youth Pastor Summit? I mean, it's worth every penny. In fact, people should give an offering and go, oh, we got so much. Here's more, because I've never seen any group, any organization give quite as much as you do to youth pastors themselves. You charge for students because you've got to, and they need to invest in it. I believe in that. And they do better when they invest, but you also have all kinds of ways to help people.
Well, you're kind.
No,
Okay.
no, I'm not kind. You're kind. You guys are the ones who did it. We get to benefit. And I love to hear this. I want youth workers to hear that God is bigger than their circumstances. And by the way, I didn't know there's a manual. I didn't even want to be in student ministry. That is my story. I was a musician, was on the road, that sort of thing. God turned my world upside down. I ended up with Youth for Christ. Hardest 3 years of my life. I was with them for 6 years, and I planned on being with them for a lifetime. How can people get in touch with you?
Well, I'm just like the generation, Doug. I just all things social. So
Okay. They can go there.
it would seem that's how most people, no matter your age now, do get in touch. So my social is Brent, at Brent A. Crowe. Crowe spelled Crowe, at Brent A. Crowe, or they can email me, Brent at slulead.com. The direct message seems to be everybody's modern day email. So
It is, yeah.
whichever is easiest. I always respond. It may take me a couple days. I do have. It sounds so arrogant just because of the demands and craziness on my schedule. I mean, I'll start recording now with you first thing in the morning. We're recording this in the morning. I'll finish recording tonight at about 7:30, 8 o'clock. It's just a day of I'm doing something for some scholarly thing, and then we're recording our own podcast. Then I've got to interview a couple things, and it's because of all the just all the busyness. I do have an assistant that helps me, so he'll see all those emails and direct messages, and he'll help me make sure we get responded to everybody as quickly as possible.
Let's talk about Rock the Universe. I see it's in January. If you don't know about Rock the Universe at Universal Studios in Orlando, tell me how what's up with that right now.
Yeah, Rock the Universe is a two. I hesitate to say two because there's a third morning option now, but it's a 2-day music festival where we take over. It's called Rock the Universe because we take over Universal Studios, and so you're in the park doing concerts and getting to enjoy the park at the same time. It's the brainchild of Dr. Jay Strack, and he started it. Gosh, I'm gonna get my numbers wrong here, but man, I think it's 25, 27 years old now. But he started it, and it's just continued to grow over the years. And it's tens of thousands of people, and it's an amazing night. It's some of the best concerts that you could want, and I'm trying to look up. This year is Brandon Lake and Forrest Frank and Josiah Queen, Matthew West, Bethel Music is going to be leading one night. Katie Nicole, Caleb Brown, Ren Collective. Ren Collective just keeps figuring out a way to reinvent themselves. But Aaron Cole, Elevation, Rhythm, KB, one of my favorites, will be there. So it's an incredible lineup of some of your favorite artists inside a theme park, and there's also a gospel presentation.
Now, you got Student Leadership University, you got Youth Pastor Summit, you got Rock the Universe, you've got the national, you've got all these things going on. When should everybody sign up for these things? The day before they happen?
Well, Rock the Universe is run, the kind of the nuts and bolts of that is run through Universal, so they handle registration for that, and they're open now. And so that registration is open now on their website. We'll open Youth Pastor Summit the first week of January. And so for all our Youth Pastor Summit experiences, registration will be available when we come back from Christmas break. We do this kind of we do a soft opening in December where you get an email if you bring students to SLU, we're doing ministry together already, we make sure all those people get registered first, but we do kind of a big opening where everybody can register the first week of January. And then for our Student Leadership University programs for the SLU Lead Journey, that registration is available pretty much year round. So as soon as what will happen, it's funny. What will happen? Excuse me.
Bless you. I'm right on target with you there, buddy. It's the season.
It is the season. I live on a farm, so I feel like I'm always in the season.
You live on a farm. I just talked about we bought a zoo. So anyway, how's the farm going?
Farm's going good. We've hurricane season is officially over as of last week, thank God. But yeah, when you live in Central Florida and you got a farm, you don't repair anything until hurricane season's over. You wait till the season's over. So we have a lot of fence line. Our house is fine, thank God, but we have a lot of fence line that got damaged. No, we didn't lose any animals. And I still got a little bit. I'm on the St. Johns River, and it's still flooded. It'll be flooded for probably another 3 months, but it's little by little going back down. But 2 months ago, right after the hurricane, it was right off my back porch. You could fish off the back porch. That's how close it was.
Well, how convenient. So, yay hurricanes for that reason. But
when you got a farm, there's always something to do. But to me, part of the benefit of it is it always keeps you outside too.
Yeah.
And there's something about this digital age where you're just kind of got a magnetic pull to be still and with a device. And I'm trying to fight that every step of the way. I want to be as active as I can be. I want to move a lot. I want to get a lot of sunlight on my skin. I want to, be around things that are alive and not glowing screens. And it's been a very healthy move for our family.
Let's talk about your family for a second. For youth workers who get overwhelmed, I know that I would go through health crisis about every 10 years because I would push myself to the limit, which was not healthy. No one told me it wasn't healthy. And so how has this affected your family? You could go nonstop, but we know that smart people, great people that have accomplished great things have learned how to use the same 24 hours in their day as anyone else. Tell me how this ministry has affected your family in the good and bad ways, and with that schedule, and just tell us what you can tell us to help other people do the right thing by their world. They're just handling a church, and they feel like they haven't got any time.
Right, certainly. Well, I think it's true of all of us. Sometimes we end up doing the right thing because we first did the wrong thing. I made a lot of mistakes as far as managing my time and trying to create healthy rhythms. And, I missed first steps, missed a lot of first steps, actually. I think 3 kids' first steps I missed. Missed birthdays, missed big moments. Sometimes you do the wrong thing before you get to the right thing. The answer is not, I'm convinced, I'm 46, almost 47 years old. Been in ministry 25 years. I love what I'm doing. I want to keep doing it until Jesus comes back. But the answer is not, let's figure out how to work really hard and get to a place where you get a break. Because all that does is create a cycle in somebody's life to work hard, crash, regroup, and then go right back at it. And I think, and maybe I'll change my tune, but at 46, I think the answer, because for me, I've always thought if I can just get to a certain place, it'll slow down a little bit, or I can get a sabbatical, or I can get a break, or, I think the answer is not getting to a place where you need a sabbatical. The answer is living in a place where you don't need a sabbatical. And the key to that is rhythm. And so, you got to learn to say no to things. We had a very healthy student conference tour. I started it. It was 20 years old. We were serving. It's called the Lift Tour. We'd been doing it for 20 years, serving. I mean, there was not a Friday night that went by without a full auditorium where we were preaching Jesus and students were coming to Christ. It was something that mattered deeply to me. But I served Student Leadership University. And I had to ask some questions like, what are we doing that's maybe something unique that we are offering? And then, could somebody else do what we're doing at the Lift Tour? And so because there was a problem, we couldn't grow anymore. The calendar was full. We decided to sunset the lift tour. And now, since we did that, there's 3 other ministries that are doing something very similar, even in some of the same cities that we were in. That ministry, and I just rejoice over that, Doug, because the truth is, you've got to. The only reason I shared that is because if you're not willing to say no to some things, then it's probably you're never going to find that sense of rhythm. But the key, it sounds negative, but the key to being able to find rhythm, in my opinion, is as you are establishing rhythm, is to elbow out certain things and to let other things in. And so we tried to simplify and go, okay, what is it that we want our ministry to accomplish? What is it personally as a leader I want to accomplish? And then what do we need to do to elbow out all the distractions to that thing? Because that's what happens. We do a great job of coming up with ideas and going to work and hustling, and then along the way we add one more thing and one more thing and one more thing, and then you look up and your life's not your own anymore in that sense. And so I would say elbowing out distraction, being able to say no, and then healthy rhythm that revolves heavily around key objectives. And man, I'm 46 and I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yes, yes, we all are. Even though we know what you're saying is actually been said in seminars and stuff, but not many people still know. Not being said enough times. So thank you so much for saying that. At the end of the day, the reason I ask about your family, I know what your schedule's like. I know what it was like being with Youth for Christ. I know what it was like being in a church and trying to make it more like a community Youth for Christ program and a church program. And you can saturate yourself on the smallest level or on the worldwide largest level like you are. And still, you'll have the same problem.
Just because it may be a bigger opportunity doesn't mean you need to say yes to it. For example, if I'm a youth pastor and I have the chance to, let me just use a very common example. I have the chance to be on a campus and pray with the team before a game. That's a really big opportunity. That by it, an act like that builds bridges to the opportunity, to the community, and to discipleship as much as anything I've seen outside of students ministering directly to students. So that's to me. So, but let's say you have that opportunity and you're a youth pastor, and let's say that rhythm is established, and that's part of your, and then all of a sudden, a buddy of yours from 2 counties over says, "Hey, we have this big disciple now, or this big weekend gathering with 500 students. Will you come preach at it?" And in that moment, the answer should be no. Like, no, because this is the ministry God has entrusted me to. And to say yes to that means that I'm not with that team on that Friday night, praying with them. And then when everything falls apart and that one, athlete blows out his knee and he feels like his whole life is over and he's going to need somebody to sit with him for 2 hours and talk and pray. You're not there for any of that because you went to do the disciple now or the weekend event or whatever it's called. And the truth is, like, that's what I'm, like I had somebody yesterday I asked me to go do a national thing in a various prestigious place with people who are well known, and you have to dress a certain way. And I went, I can't do it, man. I'm so sorry. I'm not gonna be able to do that. And they were like, why? And I said, because I've committed to go over here and I've already committed to do this, I think it's an event on a weekend for a bunch of students. And they were like, what? I know, but this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I just said, yeah, you're right. That is a once in a lifetime opportunity, but this is my lifetime calling. And so it's learning to say no, it's learning to say no to stuff it gets hard to say no when stuff seems like it's really cool, but it's outside the parameters of what God is, the assignment God has entrusted you with. And I'm not saying you never go preach at that weekend event. I'm saying you don't sacrifice what God's entrusted you with to go do other things. That's what we need to learn to say no to.
A couple things that we always relate with the worst. We're going to go quickly through some of these things. What was your worst moment in ministry? We always relate with the worst, better than we do the best.
Yeah. Worst moment in ministry is I got pulled over with a van full of teenagers, and I was speeding. And I almost didn't get caught, and one of them ratted me out.
Did they not learn anything about loyalty? So anyway. Best moment in ministry.
The best moment in ministry happened about in October of this year. And so I was preaching at our home church, and my son was home for fall break. And there was a young man that my son had been discipling for about 1.5 years. And so my son, who's going into the ministry, baptized the young man he was discipling right before I got up to preach. And so to do that kind of ministry on a Sunday morning with my son, boy, that's a highlight.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. We're going to close with this: 2 things that you want people to have learned from your talk today, from our episode.
One is create healthy rhythm. Try to create a rhythm so that sabbatical is not the goal, but sabbatical is something you experience as you go. So I'd say that would be number one. Try to create the right kind of rhythms with your life. And then number 2, I would say make sure that your prayers are audacious. Like, pray in a way that if God doesn't answer them, it's not going to happen.
Well, Brent, listen, we said an hour. We've kept to that, so I'm going to let you out of here because you've got lots to do today. We could go on and do another hour, but you don't have the time, and we're not going to do that to you. So,
I'm Doug. It's an honor to be with you at any time. I mean it, anytime.
Well, you're very gracious, and I appreciate it. This has been great. I can't wait for this episode to come out so others can hear more of you and more of your heart. Appreciate you, brother. Love you. Praying for you guys at SLU, praying that God will expand everything continually without exploding you. And keep your family intact and God blessing it. All right, brother, listen, I'll let you go. Thank you. Tell everybody at SLU, Doug Edwards said hello.
You've been listening to the Youth Worker on Fire podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and tell your friends. Also, leave a comment and tell us what you think. Stay tuned for more informative episodes.